Well, slap my face and call me Sally. Some American cities are circling the drain faster than a greasy burrito flushed down the John. We're talking urban decay so epic it makes Detroit look like Beverly Hills. But don't worry, folks. I'm here to give you the down low on the top 5 urban wastelands where dreams go to die. We'll be looking at falling populations, rising crime rates, crumbling infrastructure, all the hallmarks of a city taking the express elevator to Palookaville. So grab your riot gear and let's dive into this urban abyss, shall we? From Baltimore to Buffalo, I'll be your guide on this tour of cities in a death spiral. It ain't gonna be pretty, but misery loves company, right? So belly up to the bar and let's get this party started. First up on my list is Baltimore, Maryland, a historic city plagued by violent crime and population decline. Baltimore's been going downhill faster than a cheese wheel in a race car. This historic burg's been struggling with enough problems to fill an encyclopedia. Thanks to crazy high crime, hardcore poverty, and infrastructure older than my grandpa, people have been fleeing Charm City like rats from a sinking ship. Baltimore's always been rough and rowdy. Way back in 1849, some dude poisoned Edgar Allan Poe, possibly stealing his clothes in the process. Poe croaked, and Baltimore's been synonymous with violence ever since. These days, there are 820 violent crimes for every 100,000 Baltimoreans. For comparison, the national average is 395. Yikes. No wonder Baltimore's population peaked in the 50s at just under 1 million souls. Now there are barely 600,000 left. Experts predict another 9% will vamoose by 2030. Can't say I blame them. Sure, real estate's dirt cheap, but who wants to live in a place where you're more likely to get shanked than find a parking spot? Looks like Baltimore is gonna keep crumbling into the Patapsco River. But hey, at least the traffic's light. Next up is Kansas City, Missouri. So, Kansas City's supposedly staging some kind of comeback. Not if their depressing crime stats have anything to say about it. This Midwestern city straddling 2 states has almost double the national violent crime rate. No wonder the under 40 crowd can't get out of there fast enough. Who'd want to put down roots in a place where you've got a nearly 1 in 100 chance of being violently attacked every year? Certainly not any sane millennial with half a brain and a laptop. They're too busy building their digital nomad lifestyles and chasing cheap rent in places that don't require bulletproof vests. Sure, Kansas City's got an interesting history and culture or whatever, but sticking around to enjoy it seems about as smart as taking a stroll through the Ozarks at midnight. This city peaked population-wise back in the 50s, and it's been a steady downhill slide since. The current residents seem hell-bent on accelerating that trend, and who can blame them? With stats like these, Kansas City's predicted comeback is about as likely as a Scott Baio Oscar win. The only thing coming back here is the U-Haul trucks carting people out of town. But look on the bright side, KC. At least you'll finally beat that traffic problem. Number 3 is Buffalo, New York. Look, Buffalo's seen better days. Once a boomtown thanks to industry. These days, the only things rising are the crime rates. After manufacturing packed up and left, the city's been in a steady decline. The jobs vanished, the young folks fled, and now it's a wasteland of abandoned buildings and dodgy characters. According to the stats, there are over 1,400 violent crimes for every 100,000 poor souls still sticking around. The median household income is a measly $35,000, if you can even find a job. No wonder nearly 10% of the population threw in the towel over the last decade. Honestly, the only surprise is that more people haven't joined the mass exodus. At this point, Buffalo's become a cautionary tale of what happens when a city puts all its eggs in one rusty industrial basket. The city planners clearly didn't get the memo that manufacturing was on the outs. Now they're stuck with a deteriorating infrastructure, no tax base to fix it, and a local government so incompetent they couldn't organize a 2-car funeral procession. Look, I'm not saying there's no hope for the city of no illusions, but let's just say, if I were a betting man, my money wouldn't be on a Buffalo Renaissance anytime soon. The city needs a miracle, but in the meantime, anyone with an ounce of sense should follow the thousands before them and get the heck out of Dodge. This town's going nowhere fast. Next on my list is Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland used to be such a happening place, you know, back when manufacturing was booming, and people actually had jobs. Now the only thing still manufacturing there are sad tales of urban decay. I'm not surprised C-Town's population has dropped like a rock. I mean, who would want to live in a place where hearing gunshots is more common than hearing birds chirping And the only thing lower than the median income is the average life expectancy. All jokes aside, Cleveland's situation is pretty bleak. The city has been bleeding people for decades thanks to insane poverty levels, crime rates that make Detroit look like Disneyland, and an infrastructure that's crumbling faster than a stale cookie. The once bustling downtown is now a virtual ghost town, and entire neighborhoods have been reclaimed by nature. On the bright side, housing is dirt cheap and traffic is non-existent. Silver linings, am I right? Of course, civic leaders keep trying to attract young professionals and turn things around. But unless they figure out how to overcome the triple threat of poverty, crime, and urban decay, Cleveland's forecast calls for a steady exodus of residents, fleeing for their lives. The city's seen a 25% drop in population since its peak in the 1950s, and experts estimate another double-digit drop over the next decade unless drastic measures are taken. But don't worry, Cleveland. You'll always have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and with the way things are going, that museum might end up with more visitors than actual residents before too long. And here we are at number 1, Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, man. What a dump. This place has been circling the drain for decades. The once mighty Motor City started sputtering back in the 50s, and it's been all downhill from there. The auto industry packed up and left, taking hundreds of thousands of jobs with it. Now Detroit's a decaying husk, with more abandoned buildings than people. Not that you can blame folks for fleeing. This city's violent crime rate is off the charts. You've got a better chance of getting jacked in Detroit than winning the lottery. If that doesn't scare you off, the poverty just might. Most Detroiters live on less than what I spend in a week at Starbucks. Between the joblessness, destitution, and sky-high chance of getting shot, Detroit's population has been dropping faster than a lead balloon. Back in the day, nearly 2 million souls called this place home. Now it's barely 600,000. Experts say Detroit will hemorrhage another 12% of its people over the next decade or so. Can you blame them? Detroit's downtown has cleaned up a bit recently with new stadiums, restaurants and stuff, but venture a few blocks in any direction, and it's a wasteland. I don't care how cheap the rent is, no amount of money could convince me to live in this dump. Detroit might have been great once, but now it just sucks. No wonder everyone's leaving. Well, that was a depressing trip down urban decay lane. Looks like things are only getting crappier for these once thriving metropolises, with their crumbling infrastructure, fleeing populations, and rising crime rates. You couldn't pay me to live in any of these urban disaster areas. But hey, at least the cheap real estate prices will attract aspiring slumlords looking to make a quick buck. Just be sure to pack heat and watch your back if you do decide to move to one of these cities circling the drain. Who knows? Maybe someday these fallen urban giants will pull off the mother of all comebacks and restore their former glory. But I sure as hell wouldn't bet the farm on it.